Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Secrets to Load Building Success, Next-Gen Solutions for Manufacturing. My name is Kelly Beyonces, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. Joining us are two incredible experts, Aaron Geiger, Managing Director of Manufacturing at CPG, and DeNorris Johnson, Load Optimization Consultant. They'll guide us through today's session, sharing their insights and strategies to transform load building challenges into opportunities for innovation and growth. Before we dive in, just a couple housekeeping items. Today's session will last approximately 30 minutes. We can encourage your questions. You'll notice a Q&A box on your screen. Feel free to type your questions there at any time during the presentation. We'll address them during the dedicated Q&A segment at the end of the webinar. Also, a recording will be made available to you after the webinar. And now, without further ado, I will hand it over to DeNorris Johnson, who will kick things off. DeNorris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kelly. I just want to do a quick introduction on myself, then pass it off to my good friend, Aaron Geiger. But my name is DeNorris Johnson, been at ORTEC since 2008. Hate to date myself that way, but been here for a while. And my main expertise is that on the carton, pallet, and load optimization side. And I spent the first 10 plus years at ORTEC on the implementation, so implementing a lot of our global customers all across the world. And the last few years helping out with the business development and being Aaron's right-hand man. So without further ado, I want to pass it off to my guy.
Thank you, DeNorris. And good afternoon, everyone. As DeNorris mentioned, I'm Aaron Geiger. So I am over the manufacturing and retail divisions for ORTEC Americas. Been with the company since 2007. So DeNorris and I have been in the trenches for a long time together. Been here, I think, roughly 3 months apart from the beginning. But also been in the software industry for about 25 years total now. So, been working with supply chain companies for the good majority of that. And my role here at ORTEC is really to help supply chain teams for companies make informed decisions on supply chain optimization technology. All right, so today we're here to talk about the evolution of load building and discuss how a next-gen load building solution can really help transform your operations. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll try to stay on track from a timing perspective. We'll explore a few different areas that you can see there above in the slide, where next-gen technology is really going to excel against first-gen technology. We've had both over the years. We've seen the results from both, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But really, talk about how this can make a significant impact to your supply chain operations. But let's go ahead and dive into the presentation. All right, so if you really look at the numbers, transportation accounts for about 75% of total supply chain costs. And as most of you know that are on this the meeting right now, we're always being asked to do more with less. So how you manage that transportation expense is very critical. So efficient load building can play a really big role in improving your bottom line revenues. It can really change you from more of a cost center in the business to what we've seen in some companies to even being a profit center. And a lot of companies are doing a really good job today. We see this all the time, but in almost every case, we can see where there's improvements, whether that's putting more weight, cube, a combination thereof in the trailers to be more efficient, to reduce delayed shipments because planners are just taking so long, in a lot of cases, manually building shipments that you can't get out everything that you need to. Avoiding things like overweight fines because the planners are, overloading the axles. It's really hard to determine, heavy loading patterns and things like that DeNorris will talk through a little bit later. And then frustrated customers. We see a lot of time customers or you're having to cut orders for customers, so they're not getting what you told them to in their service level agreements. So essentially driving more miles, using more fuel, and again, having less happy customers. But the nice thing is a lot of this can be avoided with today's load building technology. All right, so ORTEC's been in the load optimization space now for 25 to 30 years. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but over that course of time, we've obviously learned a lot. Solutions have grown, they've matured, and it's not really just from what we think needs to happen with the solutions with internal R&D. It's more from working with our customers directly, seeing what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, getting feedback on our solutions and what we can be doing better with that. So the feedback that we've gotten from our customers, doing things like co-development over the years, has been paramount in the evolution to where we've gotten to now. And this has really led us from taking more of a reactive approach to load optimization to more of a proactive approach when building optimized shipments. So let's go ahead and dive into that a little bit. All right, so we're going to focus on 4 key areas today where we've seen the next gen solutions really surpass the first gen solutions. And these areas include order optimization, axle weight optimization, or axle weight compliance, warehouse execution, and product stackability. There's a lot more than these 4, but we had to really boil it down to some of the bigger ones. And we'll probably have some subsequent webinars to further address other areas in addition to this. But for today, let's just start with order optimization, and then we'll move on from there. All right, so order optimization is really critical for creating consistent, cost-effective shipments. The concept of load optimization is not new by any means. It's been around for a very long time. But what is new is where in the supply chain process is that optimization taking place. So if you look at the first generation solutions, they were optimizing down at either the transportation planning level or the execution level, where at that point in time, you're kind of handcuffed, right? You've got firm orders already. There's only so much that you can do with them. So what we did, and actually working with one of our largest CPG customers years ago, was to move that upstream to optimizing more at the demand level. So at that point in time, we can actually use the optimization to create the orders, which equate to full truckloads. And we'll talk through some of those concepts in a minute. But it also gives you the chance to manipulate existing orders as well. So you've got a lot of additional efficiencies as a result. And so this particular customer that we were working with was using our first generation solution already and doing a really good job with it. A great transportation group with this company. When we deployed the second gen technology or next gen technology, we saw over a 5% increase above and beyond what they were already doing. So some really good results there. So let's get into some of these concepts. So the first thing we'll look at is just an STO example, or stock transfer order. And what we're doing here is more demand level optimization. So what we're doing is going further up in the process, and we're grabbing stock transfer requisitions before they're firm orders. So what we're doing is we're going to put those through the optimizer, and what it's going to do is do combinations of, hundreds, thousands, if not millions of different iterations on what the most efficient load is going to be. And then it's going to create the stock transfer order itself. So what it's going to look at are all the different parameters. So how a pallet's placed in the truck, how it's turned, how it's stacked, what type of pallet, how tall should it be, sliding axles, different trailer types. So all these different parameters are going to go into the solve to get the most efficiency out of those stock transfer orders. So really, this is about the most optimal you can get in the furthest upstream that you can optimize is with these demand level STRs. But a few more things to cover. We can move on to the next. So the next thing we'll look at is what we call mega order splitting. So a lot of companies, a lot of bigger companies like your Walmarts of the world, your Targets of the world, will send in a sales order, but it equates to multiple full truckloads. And it's up to you to be able to break these up into efficient sales orders. So to have a plan to try to do that manually, again, with all these different iterations that are possible, it's tough to do, and it can take a very long time to do. So what we can do with the optimizer, kind of the same concept as we looked at with the STO there. It's going to look through all those different customer parameters. We were able to set this up on a customer by customer basis because no two customers are going to be the same in how you ship to them. And what the system's going to do is going to break that up into efficient sales orders and send that down for execution. So the next one we'll look at is what we call pull ahead orders. So this is an example of a customer shipment. And you can see we've got a few different dates here. So the February 1st date did not equate to a full truckload. So what we were able to do is look out to dates further off that are still within our delivery parameters for that customer, but be able to pull in, you can see a February 2nd date and a February 3rd date. And we took those same, customer specific rules, constraints, and we're able to pull those ahead and build those out into an efficient truckload. Then the last thing that that I'll talk about here is what we call filler demand. So this is, again, another example of a customer order where you can see on the left, it came in, 78% utilized. In some cases, that's good enough for some companies in the past, but we really want to get that utilization up to be able to, over time, take trucks off the road. So what a lot of customers will do is provide the suppliers with a quote unquote high velocity fill item. So that could be a particular SKU and a particular quantity of that SKU for, say, a given week that you can put onto a truck to be able to bring the fill rate up on that. So you can see in this example, we had 6 different possibilities from this customer. And what the optimizer was able to do is take different SKUs, take the different volumes, and be able to mix and match those different fill items to be able to fill up that truck to 98% for what you see on the right here. So another really nice technique to be able to get those utilization rates up and, again, take trucks off the road, save the company's money.
And if I can piggyback off for 1 second. So in this example, we have 6 different products, but what we typically see in implementations is you'll see dozens and dozens of different products that the customers our customers will send to them to be able to add to the truck. But then also some of our customers were already doing this manually before we implement it. And, trying to figure out stackability, axles, and how these different products interact with each other as an end user who doesn't know all the different warehouse tribal knowledge, that can be very difficult. And this is where our system is able to come in to be able to kind of fill that gap and run through hundreds of different iterations in a matter of 1 second of what's the best combination of products to maximize that truck. Now, I want to do piggyback off of earlier you mentioned pull ahead, and oftentimes, we have a lot of functionality within our optimizer that our customers have used throughout the years to reduce the number of trucks they put on the road. And we're often asked, where are the top functionalities that, customers drive that benefit? And one is pull ahead, but the other 2 at the top of my list are axles and stackability. And so I want to touch a little bit on axles first. And typically what we see when we go into these engagements and go into these projects is that customers limit how much weight they put into a truck, especially our customers that weigh out before they cube out. So you can put typically on average 45,000 pounds worth of product and weight of the wood in a truck. But we typically see customers limiting how much they can put into the truck to 41,000. We've even seen 40,000 because they're afraid of going over axle. But what we're able to do is come in and allow them to build up to 45,000 pounds, so add an additional 1 or 2 pallets to the truck. And we do that through advanced optimization of the axles and overall truck. We do that by utilizing the sliding axles. We use what we call a bell curve. And what that basically means is that instead of double stacking pallets towards the nose of the truck, you're double stacking in the middle and putting airbags on each side. That way it takes off of the weight and stress off of the front axle and back axle. And my favorite is the heavy load patterns. And so we have an example of a video. This is actually a customer of ours. When we first went live with them, they were building up to 41,000 pounds. All right. But as I mentioned before, we have this heavy load patterns, which is basically a dynamic 2-1-2-1-2 load pattern, depending on the products in the truck. And what that allows us to do is take stress off of that front axle, and then we're able to add an additional 2 pallets that you see highlighted here to that particular truck. And so what that means, big picture, what we typically see in this particular slide, you'll see 2 different sides. This is a customer of ours that we went live with. In the first week of live, we did a parallel run. So we saw what they did and what we were able to do. And the colors in this picture are by delivery date. So this is a customer that on this particular lane, they're shipping 2 to 3 trucks on this particular lane a day. And so by utilizing what Aaron talked about earlier, which is pull ahead and those axle functionality, we were able to add an additional 1 to 2 pallets to that to each truck. And by doing so, by that 14th truck, we were able to chop that off and reduce it off the road. And so for this particular customer, they saw, when we first went live, they saw a reduction of 7% trucks off the road by utilizing that functionality. But this particular customer, when we first went live with them, they were building up to 44,000 pounds because they were afraid to go straight to 45,000 pounds. It's kind of like jumping in a pool this cold. So we allowed them to gradually build up to 45,000 pounds within the next several months after go live. And The next bit of functionality I teased earlier is stackability. Okay. Now, typically what we see with a lot of our customers as well is that when we first go live with them, or when we first implement a project with them, we go to the warehouse and we notice that there's a lot of tribal knowledge at the warehouse. So that can pose two different problems. Number one, if you have a high turnover rate at the warehouse, you have to take experienced loaders off of their forklifts to train the new hires. We've seen some companies take 1 month for that learning curve for new hires, but we've also seen some companies take up to 9 months. And so what that translates to is a lot of lost time. But then also the other issue with that is that you may have someone at the warehouse that has all that tribal knowledge, but the folks who are building the loads or building the orders are centrally located somewhere else in the country and may not have all those rules. And so they're typically building loads conservatively, they're building loads not to maximize the number of pallets or weight out of fear of warehouse cuts. And so by using our optimizer, I always hate to use the word systematize, but we systematize the tribal knowledge into our configurations and to take that tribal knowledge at the warehouse in all these different locations across the country and to put in our optimizer so that the end users who are planning loads are using that same tribal knowledge that is at the warehouse. And so we do this through different configurations, but these are the two important ones. One is a stackability matrix, okay? In this particular example, we have a matrix that's set up where we can define certain products groups. In this example, yes or no, can it stack on top of other products? So we'll say, yes or no, can aerosol cans stack on top of liquids? Yes. Yes or no, can liquid stack on top of fabric? No. So that's one simple example, but we also have a more advanced, best in class, if you will, method of loading, and that's this max support weight. So when we've implemented this with a lot of our customers since 2009, but we work with these customers to come up with a formula of how much weight each product can support. Okay. And then we have a short video that I'm going to play in a second that shows how we take that value and we build the pallets and determine how much weight all the products and all the layers can support, but then also how much weight that overall pallet can support. So in this video, you'll see that we have that max support weight, but then we're also calculating how much weight each layer can support. And you saw it highlighting that middle layer. That middle layer had the weakest, it was the weakest link, as it can only support 48 pounds. So that middle layer is what's going to determine the stackability for that overall pallet. And then we do that for all the pallets. And then by doing this, we are able oftentimes to stack pallets that the warehouse didn't deem stackable before. And I typically like to use this example because a lot of our customers have hundreds of thousands of SKUs all across the world. And it's easy to know if a extremely heavy product can stack on top of a light product. You won't do that. But once you start getting into that middle layer, that middle tier, it's hard to determine which products can stack on top of other products. And this is where this functionality comes into play. And so what we typically see is that we add 3, 4, or 5 pallets to each truckload, whether it's STOs or customer orders. And the example I showed earlier is a CPG company, but I did want to show another example to illustrate this point from a building products company. We had an engagement with a company on the left side. To protect the innocent, these locations are not real. If I were to say the real locations, it would be easy to spot which company we're talking about. But this company was basically planning the loads out via an Excel spreadsheet that they use colors, and you can see the blues, the greens, etc. And at the warehouse level, the folks at the warehouse had a different set of rules, okay? And one of the rules that we got from the folks in Chicago was that they did not stack pallets on top of pipes. But then we go to the warehouse in Valdosta and we see that they're placing all sorts of pallets on top of the pipes. So then we asked the folks in Chicago, hey, is it okay if we systematize or put that logic within our algorithm? And by doing so, nice graphic. By doing so, we were able to then see that we were able to, you can see at the very far left, in this example, we were able to stack that pallet on top of the pipes. This is one simple example, but we've seen other loads from that customer where we're adding additional 2, 3, 4 pallets onto that particular load. All right, and next I'm going to pass it off to Aaron to explain how that goes to the warehouse execution.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up with this last one. So warehouse execution. So what the goal here is really to be able to execute that plan that we created up front in the warehouse. So if we're not able to recreate that in an actual truck, we're losing the value that we got from the plan in the first place. So the problem you had with the first generation solutions is they just simply didn't have that technology. You were basically sending materials and quantities down to the warehouse and wishing them good luck. And a lot of times you're going to have different rules by DC location. You're going to have different loaders that load differently than others based on tribal knowledge. And you're just really not going to know why some locations perform better than others. So with the second gen solutions or next gen solutions, we wanted to put something in place where they're going to have loading plans for every single shipment. So they're going to be able to go in and see exactly how to orient the pallet, stack the pallet, slide axles, all sorts of different things. So you've got consistently built shipments from location to location. And as DeNorris mentioned, you got a side effect of new loader training that's completed in days. You're not having to take tenured loaders off their lifts. I mean, sometimes it can take a loader, over a year to be, proficient with building trucks. So that's a lot of training, hand holding, and probably a lot of inconsistent or underutilized shipments along the way. So that's what we wanted to do, is put something in place where they can go and see how to build every single shipment. And it can be as simple as just a normal printout. It can be put on a workstation where they can jump off the lift and go, take a look at a shipment if they have particular questions about it. But we have a new best-in-class type approach where we want to send the graphics and the rules and constraints onto an electronic device. And if we move to the next slide here, show you just a quick graphic of what this looks like. So this is just iPad running iOS, and this is an application that can be put onto a forklift where they can go through and they can see exactly what this trailer looks like. So they can go pallet by pallet. It will tell them a description of the pallet, what's on there, what the dimensions are, what the weight is, how it needs to be turned, if it needs to be stacked. You can see L06 there. That means left-hand side, 6 slot back. So it's a very easy to use system to be able to, again, execute that plan that we optimized in the shipment with all those different techniques that we've talked about today.
And before, I did want to piggyback one thing. Along with those, the L02, R02, and the pallet bills, we do allow our customers to also, and we've had a few implementations where they're using automated warehouse pickers to build the pallets based off of how we built them.
Yep.
And then also you have the ability that L01, R01 that Aaron was talking about, if you do have AGV forklifts, they can use that loading instructions in order to build the loads.
No, very good point. You're seeing more and more of that these days. So just a couple of slides to wrap up here. So, effective load planning really does have the potential to make or break a business. Like I said earlier, it can change an operation from being a cost center to a profit center in some cases. We've seen it happen before. So you can substantially cut transportation costs by getting more into these trailers and being able to eventually take those trucks off the road, like DeNorris showed you in that graphic earlier. Pallet by pallet, it adds up very quickly, especially for companies that are doing a lot of volume. You can boost your supply chain efficiency. What we didn't talk a lot about today is the fact that these systems can be highly automated, even fully black boxed in a lot of cases where you're not even having to touch the solutions. So your planners can then, function more as analysts in the company, not having to spend so much time manually touching every single load. And like we said, spending, sometimes up to, 2-3 hours building very complex loads with lots of SKUs. And then lastly, enhancing customer service. I mean, the goal is to be shipping on time in full and being able to make sure that you keep your customer service levels high or even improve them from where they were. But so let's talk about real world savings. Always have difficulty with that. Of what we've seen with working with our customers. So typically it's anywhere from a 5 to 12% increase in trailer efficiencies. So you might be saying to yourself, that's a pretty broad range, and it is. If you look more toward the 5 to 6%, that would be someone that's already got technology in place, say a first gen solution for optimization. Moving to more of the 12%, that would be someone who's, menu planning on a spreadsheet. We've even seen Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 50 companies In one case, where we were at a distribution center and they were jumping off the forklifts and actually going into the break room and building the loads on napkins. So we've seen it all. And in that case, you're going to see probably 12% or even higher in results as far as efficiency gains. But again, going back to, how are we doing that, right? Going back, optimizing at the demand level versus the execution level, using those high velocity fill items to pull the shipments up and, get, sometimes 10 to 20% more on each one, not having to build in safety buffers. We see a lot of times, if there's consistently cuts on the shipments, they'll leave a couple pallet spots just because they don't trust that the loaders are going to get everything on there. So they're, handicapping themselves purposely in some cases. But again, providing those loading instructions down to the warehouse, getting rid of that tribal knowledge and inconsistencies from location to location, loader to loader, and then being able to increase the outbound shipments per location because you're building these trucks faster. And then as a result of the optimization, usually 50 to 75% increase in planning productivity that we're seeing. We talked about the reduction in new loader training time already. Being able to implement standing loading rules across the network. So if you've got similar locations shipping similar SKUs, being able to deploy standardization, so you have those best practices across the network and they're loading consistently across the country. Improving capacity planning instead of transportation, the transportation group scrambling to know how many trucks they're going to need last minute. We give them sort of crystal ball, if you will, to see how many trucks they're going to need well in advance as far as, different trailer types as well, which is really helpful for that group. And then we didn't talk about analytics at all, but all of the ORTEC solutions ship with advanced analytics. So you have very granular data for continuous improvement decisions. We could do a full webinar on this just by itself, but being able to see as your business grows and changes how it affects different parts of the business and being able to adjust to that in real time. So that's what we had today. Kelly, I'll hand it back over to you to wrap it up and maybe get to a couple of questions if we have time.
Sure. Thank you, Aaron and DeNorris, for sharing such valuable insights today. And thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us. We did have a question come through on the registration page, so we'll go ahead and address that one now. But in the meantime, please feel free to add your questions in the Q&A box. And if we don't get to your question today, we will follow up with an email shortly after the webinar. So here's the question that came through. What are the critical elements to focus on before you start using load building models?
It's a good question. I don't know if you disagree, probably data is first and foremost. It's the whole garbage in, garbage out theory with, the optimization solutions. If you don't have good SKU information, length, weight, height, specific rules, stackability, things like that, the optimization is not going to be able to run to its full potential. I don't know if you feel any differently about that.
Oh yeah, data is always most important, and just getting the most accurate requirements, as you heard me talk about earlier. All of us going to the warehouse and learning, the tribal knowledge at the warehouse and being able to pull that upstream is always important.
I would say another one that's highly underrated is change management. So, planning in advance for these projects is key, right? Ensuring the teams know what's coming, what's going to be changing, it kind of takes away the anxiety and sets expectations in advance. Having support from the executive level too, so top-down approach, so everyone's aligned with specific goals. I think getting that set up in front of the actual project kickoff makes for a much more smooth project in most cases. And we're working to implement change management in every case that we can. I think it's still something that's not as well adopted as it should be, but it's definitely growing. So I would say, in my opinion, at least there's probably more than that, but those are the top two in my mind.
Okay, great. We did have one question come through. Is the pull ahead functionality automated or manual?
It is automated. I don't know.
Yeah, and I've mostly been on SAP projects, so I'm going to speak from the SAP standpoint. Is you can set up different variants and background jobs to run using our software within SAP, and to go get that pull ahead, optimize it, and then if you're in the process of STOs, create those STOs, or if it's any other process like ship with. assigning consolidation numbers or deliveries, et cetera, to those orders. But yes, that whole process can be automated. And one other piece, sorry to add to that, is with that automation, we do set up auto approval thresholds. So we can say that, let's say, if you have a lane that you know weighs out before they cube out, we can set up an auto approval threshold to say that when it is running through that automation, to automatically approve a truckload that is 98% weight utilized or 70% volume utilized. You have that ability to set that up per lane, per customer.
Thank you. I believe that's all of the questions right now, but thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to learn more or discuss how these strategies can work for your organization, we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to reach out to Aaron or DeNorris directly, and they will get back to you shortly. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day.